Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Angela Ambitho. I'm the founder and CEO of InfoTrack Research and Consulting, a market and research agency that has been conducting research in the African continent for the last 20 years. Indeed, this year in October, we will be commemorating 20 years in existence. I'm also very privileged to be the interim president of WAPOR SSA, that is Sub-Saharan African chapter, which was inaugurated in November 2022. As a new chapter, we are full of hope and enthusiasm that the work that we do, the critical work that we do as researchers, will help to inform different publics, different stakeholders in our emerging democracies. Having been a researcher for over 20 years, I have worked with various clients in various sectors, both in the consumer research space, that is market-oriented research, and also in the public opinion and social research space. I must confess that whilst market research was where I started off, because, in our environments, it was really the kind of work that was demanded of by clients. My first experience and exposure to social research, and therefore, also public opinion research, got me hooked. Moving from dealing with why people drink specific beverages or why people are loyal to specific banks or airlines, and dealing with consumer-oriented issues that also have an implication to the bottom line was good fun. But how more exciting it was to deal with issues that touch on the lives, the everyday lives of people. The public opinion polls that we conduct in Kenya have been, very critical in terms of informing various publics on various issues. During COVID, when we were all holed up in our conclaves because we were in lockdown, we as an organization decided to use technology and conduct surveys through remote call center. Those surveys informed the Ministry of Health, informed UN agencies, but most importantly, informed the general public on what the views of every single citizen that was polled were, representing them, were on issues such as the protective measures, the lockdown itself, the impact of COVID on the economy, and their own financial constraints based on COVID. It also informed various stakeholders on the impact of COVID on the family situation, on relationships, on education, and other socioeconomic factors. Suffices to add that information in itself showed empathy. It helped different members of society understand that whatever it is they were going through was not confined to them. And indeed, this is what humanity is all about. In my perspective, humanity means that we have social justice, that we hold our political stakeholders to account. And for that reason, InfoTrack has always had a Voice of the People poll that is conducted every quarter for the last 15 years. This poll asks two critical questions. The first one is, what is your opinion as a Kenyan, about the direction the country is taking? This is essentially meant to help the government of the day, policymakers and advisors, businesses, and also the general public understand what the pulse of the nation is. If the country is indeed going in the wrong direction, then it behooves on governments to listen and to see what it is that they should be doing. Very closely related to this question is the question, why? What are the key issues that are affecting you as a Kenyan today? And what are the key issues that you'd want government to actually address as a matter of priority? In dealing with these issues, we feel that opinion polling closely therefore intersects with elements of humanity in providing that intersection, that conduit that helps the stakeholders who are, the general public and policymakers really understand what it is that the collective will of the people wants. That is one way that, opinion polling has intersected closely with humanity. We as InfoTrack also conduct government appraisal surveys. As controversial as they sometimes are, these surveys are very critical in helping holders of public office understand what we, the citizens, feel about their performance. Indeed, we have seen cases, and not one or two, but very many, where public officials, when they get the performance index, are called to account not only by their various residents, the citizens of their counties, citizens of their constituencies, but also they themselves, we can see from their actions, tend to start doing things in a manner that is concomitant with what the people want. All the research that we do with the vulnerable groups, because our continent has a burgeoning youth population that is indeed, marginalized in many cases, including decision making, a lot of our surveys incorporate youth. Some are completely confined to issues that afflict the youth, whether it be, access to education, access to healthcare, access to employment. Those surveys do a lot in terms of informing, stakeholders on what it is that vulnerable groups feel. There are various other vulnerable groups that we deal with. Those who live in frontier regions, drought-stricken regions, regions that are afflicted by insecurity. Those marginalized groups are also very critical in terms of research and understanding their perceptions and views. We as an organization have conducted a lot of surveys in conjunction with various UN agencies just to understand what the perceptions, views, and attitudes are of these marginalized groups, particularly in those frontier countries and frontier regions across, the East African and Central African or the regional context of Africa. I think one of the things that makes opinion polling and public opinion research such an enjoyable venture for me as a practitioner is how it has intersected with humanity in ensuring that, one, we amplify the voices of the marginalized. And marginalized here is typically described as young people, women, persons living with disabilities, and we can also look at those living below the poverty line. But in essence, for me, it is anybody who cannot access those who have the power and their wherewithal to change their lives. And therefore, vulnerable groups outside the defined core could then mean any citizen who is unable to have or amplify their voice. So that is the first way that public opinion research to me really plays a pivotal role, because it amplifies the voices not only of vulnerable groups, it also amplifies the voices of every citizen in our country and in our continent. I think the other way that humanity and public opinion research are closely intertwined is, in my opinion, through the performance appraisals that public opinion tools can provide. In providing appraisals on government's performance, public officials' performance, whether they are elected or appointed, officials, it holds these officials to count and to book. It makes them review their performance. It puts them under pressure to perform better. And in many cases, it basically just provides that relationship whereby the public can directly give their view to public officials as to what their perception is of the performance before another election year. I think in the next couple of decades, certainly in the next decade, I think public opinion research will become even more important in promoting human rights, social justice, public accountability and transparency, particularly because we will have access to much more advanced tools, much more dynamic technology that will be able to capture views in a faster and more efficient manner, hopefully with just as good accuracy, but it will also be able to capture the nuances and the insights from different audiences that are critical to the environments that we have. It is my hope and desire that in so doing, in the future, public opinion research will continue to become the voice of the voiceless, the voice of the marginalized, and will be a much more respected, appendage, not only for the media, but also for, those holders of public office, whether it be political or government, and it will be the mirror, the true mirror of public voice.